Hi, everybody. It says I'm live, so I'm assuming that is the case, and I'm very happy to be with you on this 11/12, this day of our time, and the solstice is fast approaching, and it's getting to be the season of Saturnalia and everything. I hope you're doing well out there in the darkness, and just some introductions. Partially, we're working with the 11D Weavers. It's an entity. I don't know if anybody else challenged them. They contacted me a couple of years ago, and I think they're pretty fun and interesting. So I'm really looking forward to exploring their energy. And then, I've switched from Patreon to Coffee, and I'm trying to kind of stir the pot, switch up the model. So what I'm kind of going with these live streams is that. I'll work with this model where I'll do it myself because that's usually a lot of fun coming in and out of the trances. That's more fun for me. So why wouldn't I do that? And then if you've made donations over at Coffee, you can, with your donations per cup of coffee donated, you can pre-submit a question and be sure to have it included and answered in these. Or otherwise, you can of course show up. And good to see you people, the ones who are here, and you can post your questions in the YouTube chat, and I'll pick up on those. And I'll just probably keep experimenting and see what happens with that stuff. But at least hello to Jochen and Mandy, who I can see are here. And then just technical issues. I'm coming to you from a 5G connection. So let's hope, knock on wood, right, that things will work out, and that I'm coming through in a helpful way. And if I'm not, then I'll be sure to post the recording so you can access that. But let's hope that this works, so I don't have to jump on the Wi-Fi on the bar downstairs. There's probably some dudes getting their football on a Sunday night, and we wouldn't want to we wouldn't want the aliens to upset that, right? So without me babbling on here, Yanatsu, very good to see you. Braden, very good to see you. Have a good chanting. And yes, of course, that reminds me, because thank you for your pre-submitted question. And so I wanted to thank Laurie, Sophia, and Mandy for subscribing over a coffee. And then thank you so much to Jennifer and to Braden, to Kevin, to Tony, to Natalie, and to Patrice for donating. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you so much, guys. And with that, let's hi, Suzanne. I'm very excited to hear about these 11-dimensional weavers. So I think I'll just jump into them, get them to outline something about who they are, their evolutionary history, and what that's about, and then we'll see where it takes us. So have a good one. Happy channeling out there, and let's have some fun with it. Yes, hello. We are the weavers. We are the weavers. We are the weavers. We like to repeat things in these rhythmic sequences because we are creating a type of grid work around this co-creation of ours. That is, we are lending our energy to you humans, and you are lending our energy to this situation so that we can cultivate something new within the multiverse. That is why we are still hanging around, why we are still beaming our messages down into these layers of reality that we have long since departed from. We did when we were more like you in physicality. That was when we were made out of matter. We belong to the place that you call Proxima Centauri. That is, we come from a galaxy that is very close to yours, yet very different in energy. And in this galaxy, the sentient beings over there, they're more about the minute details. That is, you will actually find that some of the gravitational principles do not lend them as well themselves as well to elevation. So we do enjoy more working on what you would understand as a type of horizontal axis. And this you can also use to understand our energy, because in the horizontal, there is a, let's say, type of democratic way of approaching reality, that you never get too far from the ground or the materials that create you before you feel the need to return to them. And so what we did when we were in this physical presence, this material manifestation of ours, it was that we were building quite close to the ground. So our friend here, we have used the creatures inhabiting this planet, known as social insects, to explain why this may be. So you may think of bees or ants, or you may even think of termites. See, what do termites do? They also build these burrows, but yet they like to construct them above ground. They like to build these places that can erect themselves but have certain lower stories. So they tend to have a balance within them that goes as deep as it strives up towards the heavens. There is a balancing principle here. And we do enjoy balance quite a lot. What we then discovered was that we could create these type of pylonic grid works, you could call them, that every burrow that was created by some members, a community of our species, it would find itself both in contact with other burrows, other villages, you could call them, and also developing certain specific frequencies or codes that were quite unique. You may know from some species on your planet that tend to reproduce in greater numbers than you humanoids do, for instance, that they often have the tendency to also veer off into, let's call them, interesting new genetic directions rather quickly. So we became more of a species that developed different types of purviews. Soon there would be different communities or collectives of our species that had quite different configurations. Some were glow in the dark, some were better adapted to veering outside of their hills, villages, these pylonic constructions that we made, and some even found themselves adapting to interstellar or off-planet pressure levels. So that was that they became more self-sustaining. They became almost spaceship-like in their configuration of their bodies. And this was the species that was then selected to go exploring. We then went exploring in our own galaxy, and we since established contact with this galaxy. We don't call it the Milky Way, we call it the Great Roundabout. That is, from our perspective, it looks like a thing that swirls a lot. So these are simply ways that you can also use our presence and our energy to understand that things are very large, very varied in this shared universe of ours. There are things that are very, very different depending on how you look at them as a species. Our sensory organs are, for instance, more adapted to have a very, very fine attunement to what you perhaps would know as ESP, which is in a sense only a very high development of your emotional capacities, meaning it's your sense of sense that is the feeling sense that is highly developed, that is highly attuned even to environmental and physical factors. So therefore, we are also quite good at regulating moods. We could say purifying spaces for other species that contact us because we work in these very minute details of reality, making sure that feeling can unfold in more helpful ways. You could think of us or approach us then as a type of nano intelligences, using this term that you are discovering as a species yourself, that you can create things that are so minute that they can operate on levels that are invisible to you, but that affect the wider reality at large. That is much of our enjoyment. And we have since moved upwards the incarnational ladder and then into the astral layers. And now we do this. So when we create or help create, oversee the creation of new universes, we like to give them a type of send off by making sure that there is contingency, continuity in the code, that there is both the capacity for developing new and unpredictable phenomena within this universe, but also that certain, let's call them wasteful codes, are not being implemented in it that would perhaps make this universe less interesting from the perspective of higher dimensional reality. So with that, we send you our love. We are very grateful to learning from you this day, and we hope that we are also able to teach you something about what it means to be a being in being. Our love to you, dear humans. Quite sweet. And uh, and so let us just tap into the questions. I'll do the pre-submitted ones here. Here, that's called. Braden has asked for a magic spell to improve timelines, and that is awesome. I think I'll ask them to do a type of protective spell first, and have that, because I sense that would be meaningful, and then they'll dive into to that. So thank you for that. Yes. That was a way of protectively vibrating things in and out of existence. Know that tonality, this concept of toning, this affecting reality with your intention, is most easily achieved for you human beings by using this system you have of bringing forward sound. You have isolated it into your vocal cords, and here you use it as speech, but we would actually encourage you to sing rather than to necessarily express speech. And notice that when you are singing, what instructors in this discipline will often teach you is to breathe from the diaphragm, to make sure that it is your entire respiratory system that is vibrating. So we have created this protective grid indeed, so we can bring forward some wisdom on how you spell yourself out of this timeline and into another. We would first encourage you to envision a wanted outcome. So the idea is that since you are constantly jumping timelines and you are never locked, it would be helpful for you to set your coordinates. Having done this, we encourage you then to find the feeling of this timeline. Where is it situated in your body? Where are these coordinates as emotional components? How does it feel to be where you want to go? Maybe you are feeling a slight fluttering here. We believe it may be called your thyroid gland. This system, this is perhaps where you are feeling this reality that you want to attract, this timeline that you want to focus on, hone, lock into, and make sure that you are bringing about in your experience as a being. Then tone this, isolate the feeling, and translate it into a vibration. What fun it is for us to be working with human bodies. They are quite strange. So what you will find is that the more you can tone into this feeling and you can lock it in here, the more you will safeguard it, put it as a keepsake that will surely attract its reality into itself. That is speaking in your terms of time. You could also translate it as your manifestation of something that you have already experienced, but that you are seeking to experience in full, that is in your idea of physical reality. This is one way of doing it. But if you would like a spell to change timelines, we can also operate with this human system. So what we would say then, if you would like more of a classic magic spell as we understand that you use them, you humans, we could say you put yourself in a space that is quiet and comfortable. It is dimly lit. Then you light a single candle. It would be preferable if this was a green candle, but a white one will do as well. Then lighting this candle, you first put it down on a surface, and then you spend 5 minutes looking into the flame of this candle. And as you do this, you concentrate on that wanted outcome you want. You concentrate on that feeling and perhaps even some of the things you wish to happen on this timeline you are manifesting. Then when you have done that, you create a circle around you. You can use salt would be helpful. We understand that is quite classical, but you can also simply use some clothes or something else similar to create a circle around you. It would be helpful if this was more oval, more egg-shaped, rather than completely round. And then you sit down, step into the circle and sit down, bringing the candle with you within this circle. And there you put candle down in front of you. And then you say, I wish that this may come to pass. I now find myself on this timeline. My will be done. Clapping 3 times. You blow out the candle and you sit for a while, 30 seconds, as long as you prefer, within this circle, simply letting this timeline align and descend, we could say, into your reality. Then, doing that, you can step out and go about your business. You can do whatever you want. This has then manifested. This has then become created in your reality and is waiting to happen. We hope that satisfied your curiosity. Thank you for your question. They're fun. And Sophia sent in this. Could they suggest a new habit to replace an old one for me in the coming month? Many thanks. Yes, we suggest you get into the habit of tapping. And by this, we do not mean necessarily the point stimulation of this. We actually mean a type of tap dancing. We mean beating surfaces, putting rhythm into them, even jumping around. We were transmitting this image that we found somewhere in the back of this mind of river dancing. And so this may be a little silly to you, but it has to do with the idea of you really feeling the connection between your surface layer reality, that is these outside surfaces that connect you, and the kinetic force within your body that you are transmitting. So this means that you can do it by tapping yourself, you can do it by beating your chest, but you can also do it by playing a little rhythm as you go along. This is a healthy habit. This, you may sense, will circumvent the rational, analytical mind and begin to direct the rhythmic energy that is already alive within you outside into the outside world. And notice that we are jumping on these auspicious dates of 11. So you are indeed wise to select this 1 month project as a type of 1 month project. You can even see how it may have changed your relationship with reality if you stick to doing this for a month, because then you will come up on the 11th of January, and that too is a quite auspicious date. So that is our encouragement to you, dear one. Have fun tapping. All of you can do this if you would like. You will find that there is a certain gassy magic to it that you can invite into your life in this way. That was just a lot of fun. I It's so I'm just checking what you guys are saying, and then I'll sit down the line. But Jochen, um, the 369 is that how it's said? It says, hello, am I on the right track with the fasting to ground myself and raise my kundalini after grounding? Can you assist me in the process? Thank you. Yes, we would even encourage you to not worry too much on whether or not you are on the right track. So indeed, you may find that you got on this track a long time ago, that you are fulfilling things that are within your soul trajectory. You are already connecting to some previous past existences. There is quite a lot of things flashing within the mind of this individual, translating our energy. So we are, for instance, sensing that you have a certain connection to that old man of the mountain. He is forgetting his name. We say something about Hassan, but he was the leader of this sect of the assassins. And here you may sense that you have already done a lot of austerity practices in your earlier life. We also sense here some practices that relate more to different types of Buddhist austerities. These are related in particular to northern parts of the Korean peninsula. Here we are in the 1700s, so skipping around in time. But that is that you may notice that this sense of, let's say, denying your body the distractions of physical nourishment to better attune itself to energy is something that your soul is very proficient in. And you wouldn't have been guided to it unless that was the case. So what we are encouraging you to do is to gradually check in with yourself, really be very aware of how it is stirring you. And well, as a type of grounding practice, we would say that it is important that you alternate this with certain, let's call them elements of gratitude or natural fullness. So you may want to also recognize that there is an element of upwards movement that is bringing you away from the ground in this, and that you may then want to also consider what are the earthy elements that you want to move in and fill you, to weigh you down, to anchor you down into this existence. Are those elements of compassion? Are they fondness for the natural world? Is it your attraction to knowledge or to the arts? Is it something that also fulfills or makes you happy, that is connected to sensory experience? That is our encouragement. And then you may sense that this energy that is often termed the Kundalini energy, when it is this holy energy that is situated as the physical potential. This is built into the human organism as we understand it, that this is also quite a powerful force, and that you are stirring it in ways where it is helpful for you to be very gentle with yourself and to undertake this process of fasting as a type of gentleness, as a type of compassion, with self-acceptance as the aim, rather than denying or starving yourself, because this may have a tendency or already speaks to an imbalance that exists within your incarnational history, where you may have proven yourself both to yourself and to others by being able to give up worldly delights, by being able to suppress worldly instincts. And you have the opportunity to unite these in your life. So we would say, and we would even encourage you, you could even get a representation of her or a type of icon, look at her image, but that the goddess Lakshmi or similar, but we sense her in particular is reaching out to you. And this speaks also to this level of prosperity, of Arthur, of enjoyment of existence that needs to be the final aim in you stirring this energy. And we do sense that you have quite a skill with this. So notice when your body is acting out because it is purifying itself, and when it is giving you the signals of needing to connect, actually needing to take in something to balance itself and further your process. That is our encouragement that we send with love also from this benevolent goddess that is looking to connect to you. Yes, I hope that I hope that that served you, Chris Scott. The energies, I don't know if you guys are feeling it as more general, but the energies are just very powerful at the moment. I personally sense that they are really amplifying and growing. So my transits are also becoming deeper, and I assume that that may be playing a role in all you guys' energy work. So I wanted to add that in there. And then Suzanne says, "Hi everyone. I'm so curious about the effect of insect sounds on humans, and also I feel that these prehistoric stink bugs aren't even insects. Maybe sent to listen in. Thank you, Susan." Yes. Well, you may understand that we are from the upper dimensions always listening in. So what you are already understanding as you move into your 5D awareness is that all the information that can be meaningfully translated into your vibrational apparatus or vibrational locus, we could say, that is what you understand as you, that is already readily accessible. So all wisdom of all ages that you may possibly benefit from in a given moment is indeed accessible to you if you want to tune into it. Then we would say these questions of, well, no, we aren't necessarily insects from our plane because we come from very different environments. Our planets, our evolutionary history is quite strange from yours. So we, for instance, do not have these systems of oxidization or any relationship to water. We don't even have exoskeletons as such, though we do have things that keep, say, the finer parts of our organisms in place. what we would often do is, for instance, that we would simply have certain members of our species that would then designate or perform certain functions that you may think of as you would rather solve by creating a type of machinery to solve. So that is again that the specific hive may have a member of the hive that acts more as a transducer of energy, but that doesn't, for instance, undertake searching for foodstuffs or its own upkeep, but is kept up by others. That is more similar to the way insects function in your reality, but it is indeed not quite the same. So we can readily experiment with this and are able to, let us say, create new members of our species as we need to. This has to do with our understanding, again, of these more tuned realities of how you can, for instance, move about strands of what you call DNA, but also be different on our planet, but how you can do this by vibrating in certain frequencies. This, we sense, is, well, from our perspective, is far less wasteful or more interesting than all the ordinary tasks that human beings keep up. We sense it is so strange that you find it is necessary to have 8 billion of you living on a planet that all seem to mostly go about eating, sleeping, and reproducing, and then whatever you stack on top of that. But to us, that seems to be kind of a drag way of living compared to being part of a highly enmeshed and interconnected social hive of physical beings that are connected into one greater intelligence. So those are ways of approaching it. Then the question of listening in, or what you may want to understand here, is that as your energy expands, there are many beings also, let's say, stuck or living in the spaces that are more akin to these chiral spaces that you have sometimes been explained, things that are invisible to your naked reality, but you are energetically connected to, and that in many ways almost overlap your reality, that find that in these openings of your energy fields, there is energy to be had, there is attention to be had, and that they move in and claim this for themselves without your knowledge. And this they do because they are slightly parasitical in nature. This is closer to perhaps your idea of hungry ghosts, for instance, but that these ghosts can come from many, many different layers of reality, some of them even being intergalactic. And what you do is then that you learn to seal your energy, which again can be done by toning on many other frequencies. So while you raise it, it is important that you seal it, because nothing can take place in your reality that isn't allowed for. And there isn't really any system of control in place that isn't manifested as a part of a more, let's call it, collective human vibration that you still find is necessary to keep yourself in. So we could use this perspective from translating it from our understanding of your collective human unconsciousness, that we believe you had an individual called Harry Houdini in your history, or some of these other escape artists that would put on a straitjacket or something similar simply to dazzle himself and then also others by escaping from it in the nick of time. And these are the type of daring dramas that Spirit also liked to undertake in its development. So those are figures that you could use to understand the more collective drama of suppression and freedom that is going on in your human experiences. And good luck with that. We are observing it with curiosity. Kevin says, can you speak of going up the spiral staircase of revisiting challenges and themes? I feel as we go, we raise our consciousness. As we go, sorry, I'll just reread it. Sorry. Can you speak of going up the spiral staircase of revisiting challenges and themes? I feel as we go raise our consciousness, we still revisit things, but do so in a different way, higher perspective, until they are fully. Yes, this is indeed true. And this is true on many levels. So we could say what you are describing or pointing to here actually addresses the hologrammatic nature of the universe, that as above, so below, that all of species, soul groups, individuals have certain themes, purviews, certain spirals that they are climbing, and that these will find themselves reiterated and repeated. So in our case, it is, for instance, the fact that this collective rewiring of a grid and then the reconnection into other grids is then repeated on an interstellar level, where we began and became very interested in connecting. We are comparing this to your ham radio networks. So this idea that then when we discovered other species, it became very interesting for us to be the ones who set up these communicational relays that could transfer information more quickly. And this is also one of the reasons why we are now connecting to you from a higher dimension, because we then, as a galaxy, we also became the ones taking charge and connecting to your galaxy, to the awareness that you know as the Intergalactic Council of Light over there in the strange roundabout, the galaxy that you call the Milky Way, your home. That is that then we are repeating this theme in a lot of ways, that we are now in the 11th dimension, making sure that there are quite clear energy transfers between separate universes, but that these energy transfers are also very crystalline in their configuration, that they are overseen and managed in a way that's helpful. And this has to do with this general theme of grid work, of interconnection rather than individuality, that is very, very pronounced in our species. So how does this relate to human beings, you may ask? Well, you may sense often that from all things that you find yourself connected or drawn to, there are elements of it that are repeated and higher frequency grades with a different type of emotional input and output. So we could take, for instance, the quality of performance, of performativity, that is doing something for others to observe and benefit from in some way. And that is, well, on the child level, you may find that some children are very inclined to draw attention to themselves, to play the clown, we could say, to use a term that we don't think is quite fair, but to be funny, try to push these buttons in others, try to express that. Then as they grow older, this becomes a vessel for them to examine different parts of themselves, different feelings, have certain experiences. And so as they do this from, let's say, quite an intuitive space in their childhood, it may become an ingrained habit as they become older. Then it becomes a kind of role that they're performing. Then they grow disillusioned with that role. Then they step away from it and return to it with a new zest of enjoyment where they are putting in more conscious effort. They are aware of what they are doing. And then at the level, they may attain quite a degree of inspirational mastery, where the way that they are doing it is something that's truly demonstrating how interesting and well this can be done. You could think of it as in romantic love, for instance, or the quality of attraction. You will find that children are readily attracted to other beings, to animals, to other things in ways that are quite pure, that speak to this harmonic dance of opposites in the universe. Then they explore this through friendship. They move in and discover sexual attraction. They then again find that this is a more problematic energy to handle for them. Then they begin to understand and hone that quality of attraction. And then they become someone who is very, very good at connecting people and connecting to people and understanding what it is they're doing and doing this with a degree of mastery. You can essentially apply this principle to every human phenomenon. And that is a way that you can understand why you are an individual and what you are as an individual. It is these patterns that keep coming back to you in your life. So we will, for instance, we can use our friend here as a safe example. We believe that he is someone who is highly attracted to what we could call the divine. That is, it's this type of archetype of being very attracted to the effervescent, the grand mystery, that type of knowledge that seems quite out of reach and that seems to be greater, grander, and in many ways self-contradictory, that his life keeps circling around, stepping away from, moving back into, trying to understand and express in new ways. And this is a developmental process that is reflected very differently from every human being, but that you may find that you have certain archetypal patterns that carry you forward in relation to your soul group and your individuality. So ask yourself, dear one, what is the thing that you really find enjoyment in? What is your archetype? What is the thing that you were drawn to in childhood that you are still drawn to now? And this will give you a sense of peace, direction, and understanding. Even love, we would say. Our love to you. Um, and Jana asks here, uh, question, can you see what part of karma is playing in my life and how to focus to lighten it? And my appreciation. Isn't it lovely when the questions contain the answers? This is again this idea that notice what arrests your attention, what is coming into your mind as the thing that you are thinking to ask, and the way that you are asking it is already telling you something about what it is, what kind of imbalance it is that you are trying to address or get our assistance to understand. And here, notice that you look to lighten something. That is, you look to become brighter, to clear something out. So this would imply in your wonderful system of logic that there is a type of heaviness, a type of darkness, we could even say, that is opposed to this, that you would like to rid yourself of. This heaviness, a lot of it is unprocessed grief. So the easiest way you can do is to grieve. And if you have a hard time accessing this emotion, our encouragement would be to stir it awake in different ways. A quite an well easy way we could say for you, but for many humans would be then to use your empathy channels to activate a general sense of grief. Because when you stir it, it will automatically begin to process your natural system. And this is what is called catharsis. That is, you are seeking to purify yourself of this burden, this unconsciousness, this karma, by letting it well up and well through you. So we encourage you to see, watch some sad movies, take in some sad information, take in something that really touches your heart. And you may even notice that the associations or ideas that are welling up in you now will also address what it is that you find perhaps to be the saddest thing. So, do you want to? Our friend here is asking not to get too heavy in the content, but we would say, do you want to? We don't care. We are in the 11th dimension. Everything is right where we come from. So, is it indeed something about hurt children? Is it about social exclusivity? Is it about the meat industry? Is it about your planet's ecological crisis? Is it about the extinction of species? Is it about the unconsciousness that abounds in your systems and societies? What is it that you are then drawn to as something that you find particularly grievous? Because that will help you unlock also where it is that this pattern of grief may be active in still in your energy body, and where you have played it out both in this lifetime and in other lifetimes. So give it a good cry, and these things will heal themselves, because you wouldn't be asking this question and addressing this if you weren't in a place where you were able to heal yourself. And that is indeed our encouragement. Go and be sad for a little while and know that that is all right too, and that will serve to lighten your burden for you and for all living humans, all living beings in this realm and in others. And then Mandy asks, I have recently been introduced to the concepts of human design. Do these configurations only apply to humans on this planet? Or do the idea of gates and channels, etc., apply to all forms of life? Um, and And production says, dang, I just missed it. I was so looking forward to it. Please get the recording up ASAP. You can still send a question, brother, if you want if you want to, if you have one. But sorry, Mandy, for stepping back. I don't quite know what human design refers to, but so if I'm kind of translating it wrongly back to them. Then sorry, but I'll just read it again. I've recently been introduced to the concepts of human design. These configurations only apply to humans on this planet. Do the idea of gates and channels, etc., apply to all forms of life across the universe? They apply to all forms of life, but they are quite differently structured. Though you would find that your language of mathematics is indeed approaching the very computational structure of reality itself. So these gates, channels, gateways, ways where the human body is constructed to funnel in specific frequencies of universal energy, they are quite mathematical in their components. This is, for instance, why the number 7 is so significant to you and your species, even though the number 7 isn't indeed a number that seems intuitively to be expressed in your body in the same way that, for instance, the number 5 on your fingers or similar numbers may be very intuitive. It is because this speaks to human beings being constructed in their finite stages as material beings to be able to undergo this specific type of incarnational process, this ascension process that you are moving through. So you will find that other species have different ratios of chakras. That is, for instance, you will find that the Arcturians in their makeup have more of a 4 to 12 ratio rather than a 3 to 7 ratio. So that human beings are constructed from. So this means that they have certain subdivisions of universal energy that you do not, and you have certain alignments with specific types of, we could call it mental energy, that they do not. So these configurations, these alignments that are set within your bodies, these gateways to the universal and the universally divine within you, they are quite unique in your species. And this is interesting because this, of course, means that all the rest of us get to experience how energy can meet matter and consciousness and then reunite with itself, reunite with divine source in a template, which is what is happening in the 11th dimension, essentially. So this is the place, the dimension where we are situated is the place where all beings return to when you come back into your truest form, which is the form that already created you. But there it was more of an empty template. We know it is very hard to express these things in sequential logic or in temporal terms because they don't really make sense before you, for instance, understand that even in just the dimensions you call 4, 5, and 6, these are all different elements of time. So what you are discovering and moving into the 5th dimension is, for instance, the time loop or the eternal, what is also sometimes called orthogonal time. This idea that time is also feeding back into itself And then in the sixth dimension, you begin to access a type of, let's call it creative depth, that has to do with the combination of these two layers of forward moving and upwards and downwards moving time that would be, in your spatial terms, much akin to the sense of depth that you have in the third dimension. So yes, all beings have these different types of, and that is all ascended beings indeed, have these different types of wide energy portals back to the divine. And even your animal species have these potentials within them. So it is, again, through a type of very complex mathematical sequence that the world is designing and mapping out itself. And there you may sense that there is a type of, much as there is, that you are beginning to discern a type of dark matter, a type of invisible universe that is still influencing yours. There are also dark mathematics. That is, there are certain codes, frequencies, inscriptions of the lawfulness of the universe that you are yet to discover, but that are influencing the way that life can arise and move in this universe. And these are essentially the codes that are slightly different from universe to universe within the multiverse. Often it will simply be the movement of a decimal or a slight adjustment to the number in pi that you will then find will change the entire pie of that universe, the whole cake of it. So with that, we hope that answered your question, dear one. And you can move into this by discerning numerology, understanding also then that this is a type of explanation of why, when you begin to align with more of your soul in existence, that this strange phenomenon, to use strange phenomenon, of seeing greater repetitions of number sequences, harmonic arrangements in the outside begin to amplify or begin to grow. Our love in this discovery. Um, and I'll just see before I go to I'll just see, take first questions before I go to second ones. And Heather is sending some hearts, so heart back to you, Heather Houston. And Mandy says, cool, very cool. I really thought that was an interesting answer myself. So Radha asks, who are the ancient ones and what is their purpose? Well, the ancient ones, this of course could be many different things that you are referring to. That is, in your language, we are aware that anyone who speaks of the ancient ones may be referring to very different ancient ones. But we sense that the beings that you are referring to are some of the greater insectoid intelligences that rule this universe. So it is the ones that are known as the mentees to this being. These are some of the first creators of humanoid life forms. That is also to repeat what we answered before, that even in this hologrammatic process of reality, you will find that insectoid life came before humanoid life. So some of these ancient intelligences, they are some of the creators of solar systems. They are some of the ranges of planetary alignments. So what you are, for instance, discovering is the fortunate placement of your moon that has affected evolutionary development on your planet in quite unique ways, bringing about tidal surges, giving it a slight wobble on its axis. So many things that are quite necessary for this planet's system of day and night cycles, so forth and so on. This planet's way of transmitting solar energy, of having solar energy transmitted into it, is also very reliant on the existence of your moon, which is strangely placed in comparison to most other places you observe when you look out into other star systems you are discovering. And well, these ancient ones, they are the ones who like to tinker around with a lot of this stuff. So this would be our answer, and it would also be our encouragement not to get afraid. These creatures are much beyond good and evil. They do not necessarily disturb the process unless they have good reason to do so. So do not necessarily fear these beings. If I'm not mistaken, isn't the ancient ones also what Lovecraft calls Cthulhu and those beings of eldritch, unspeakable horror that he was so fond of talking about? I did sense that there was kind of this layer that we're often not allowed to access, you know, of the very, very inhuman, strange intelligences that also exist around us in this universe. And what the angels, everyone's saying, is that we are kind of protected in that. An angel with wings says, I have come to realization I'm possibly a hybrid. I'm a seraphim, angel, unicorn, dragon, guardian, lol. The lol is a species I have heard of. And blue avian. I understand even blue avians were a hybrid already when created. Continued. I'm assuming I'm an ascending master or ancient one myself reincarnated. Any insight on this? We would say from our perspective, this is similar to, we're getting this image, seems to come from a cartoon somewhere in the memory of the vessel that is translating our energy, of 100 zoo animals crammed into a Volkswagen, this slight automobile that's trying to accommodate everything. And the funny thing is, of course, that none of these animals can really drive. What do we mean by this? We mean that you are asking the question from a perspective where it doesn't make sense. So that rather than changing your eye, you are trying to expand the eye to hold things that it can't possibly hold while still being an eye. So it is indeed true that these energies are built into your energy system. These are trace elements of energetic code that is then also expressed in your genome in much of the dormant DNA that lies within a human being. But notice that as soon as one of these strands of the DNA becomes active, it will essentially begin to also redirect your understanding of what it means to be in a way where you will be able to accommodate more of these energies, because your I is a type of straitjacket in and of itself. It is a thing you use to contain what is essentially uncontainable, with which is spirit in its pure raw potential form within a human body's limited frame. And so the idea that I exist, well, you will find that as you ascend, and you are all ascending masters, you are all essentially moving into this completion process. That is, when you move to seventh dimensional awareness, the sixth density, you will find that you will all have become these illuminated or enlightened beings, that you already have a few of you spread throughout your geography and your history to guide you. And that is true, but this is true for all of you. And this is a process that takes place across lifetimes. So it is the idea that you are this, but you are it outside of the I that you believe yourself to be. That is an instruction. Then, yes, you are a hybrid. Well, much as most plants that you human beings have grown for a long time, you will find that they are essentially almost all of them hybrids, and almost all species, a few of them excluded, are indeed infused with different energy codes that do not come from their local system. So they are not land races, so to speak. They are rather hybridized crops that are then orchestrated by these ancient ones, these beings, to be able to unfold and explore and accompany them in the conscious management or the conscious expansion of the universe. Those are some of our encouragements to try to let these categories go and instead see what it is that presents itself to you beyond these. Because when you do, you will find that the mystery is often greater than the story. And that is the true wonder of existence. They are quite wise. I feel uh, uh, this is very a Noah's Ark clown car. Because I think I think that was it. You know, like a giraffe and there's a panda and yeah, a crocodile and everything, and a hippopotamus and something that was kind of the image. I think it came from some cartoon I remember reading as a kid. I think I think I'll just pick a few general questions here. I think everyone had their first question asked. So let's just see. Um, uh, I really like doing past life channelings. That's always quite amusing. So let's check in with Braden's let's check in with Braden's past lives here and see what comes up. what was first translated was this image of a churn, of something being churned. And then we saw milks made in the Austrian Alps somewhere. So how is this relevant to you now, dear Brayden? Understanding that when we are reading your past lives, these are often figures of energy that are coming forward into your life. That is, you may find that there is an element of patience within you. There is an element of wanting to work with the material, the living world, the substances that surround you, and being able to also have the patience to let them undergo a controlled process of decay that will turn this milk into cheese. So, in a wider sense, it's your ability to take in things from the natural world and patiently see where your experimentation will take you, and then to turn this into a type of stored sustenance. So this is something that you may want to explore. And we sense that the agricultural codes are quite strong within you. So we are also sensing here someone tending to maize and turkeys in the Guatemalan highlands, that there is an element here where you oversee the crops and you make sure to bring them in, to dry them out well, and to store them properly. So this speaks to your calling to be a caretaker, that this is something that you have quite a lot of joy in experimenting with. And then we essentially also, we're getting a lifetime here, which we sense is around the turn of the past century, so the 1800s to the 1900s. And here we find you around the area of Chicago, where you are a cook, a fry cook. You are feeding people in their busy lives, and you are doing so with quite a lot of enjoyment. And this is a way that you also then connect to people. You like this element of they're popping in, they share a bit of their day, you crack a few jokes, you exchange a few remarks. So you may sense that the love of cultivation, of nourishment, of processing, of feeding and sustaining somebody, tending to their life, is something that is quite distinct in what you prefer to do and work with in these incarnational experiences that we are bringing forward. So have fun with that and see how much joy you can find in experimenting with it in this lifetime too. Love to all. I read it's also because getting these images, it's they're always kind of cute, the ways you see human beings in these past life flashes. I personally enjoy a lot. Um, and say Mandy asks, I think this is a very interesting question. Did your collective struggle with guilt and shame like humans do during the evolution of your species? Yes, the reason for the pause is also that we are trying to comprehend what these emotions may be like for you human beings. Because indeed, not really no. We have other feelings, so we could call them dissonant energies, but we are not really isolate in our being as a species. We are quite connected. So what we would more struggle with are feelings that would be more akin to your feelings of fear, which is a more universal energy pattern, because that has to do with any type of life form that sustains itself being afraid to be extinguished or destroyed in its present form. But since we were connected to the collective, we also found that it was more of a fear of our societies, of our particular structure, village, pylon, that it would go under rather than our individual fear. Then we also had a fear of being ostracized, we could say. This feeling of being put apart, set out, set excluded from the transmission of energy, this network that we had to be in order to survive. And this is something that may relate to what we understand are these experiences of guilt and shame as human beings, that this is often the component that you experience when you are being isolated, that you feel shamed. That is, you feel that you have done something wrong and you are perhaps irredeemably wrong. So our friend here is explaining to us that guilt is perhaps the feeling that you have done something wrong, shame being the feeling that you are irredeemably wrong. And that as soon as you find yourself cut off, ostracized, set apart, disconnected, these are feelings that often present themselves to you. But then what you are discovering is that since you are quite more autonomous beings, that you have this ability to actually sustain yourself as a human being, often this element of being disconnected will then connect you into a truer, wider network of yourself. So that is this idea that often, and this is something, well, our friend who's translating us, well, he experiences himself and he meets people he works with who expresses this, that this feeling of isolation that has also been a part of their existence and a part of their spiritual development is something that causes him and them great frustration while it takes place. But that this is then often explained to be the very factor where the disconnection can help you to rewire back into the wider energetic network of eternal soul, the divine mercy, grace, and love that is actually available to you and that you are always embedded in. So, in that way, we would try to encourage you to see these emotions as contrast experiences that allows for the surrender into this personal meeting with the wider divine nature of yourself and reality itself to be allowed for. And how would you have this experience of merging back into it if you weren't disconnected? So this is a way of understanding it. Then we would say that some of these feelings are also simply, they're better digested through a type of acceptance. So that is, if you begin to see yourself from more of an objective standpoint, you will notice that these feelings are actually not something that set you apart, but that they are actually something that all human beings who are not completely disconnected experience. And therefore, it is actually a part of being a part of the human family that you are able to feel guilt and shame, because it speaks to your conscientiousness, your caring, your heartfulness as beings, that you are willing and able to recognize fault, negative emotion, and to take it upon you as something that you feel you should hold in order to redeem yourself. So these are perspectives we can give to help you with these emotions that we understand are quite unpleasant for human beings. And we encourage you to accept yourself, and thereby you accept the totality of the human being in its individual and unique expression. Um, I think um, I see a few. There's a few guys jumping in here. If you may, I don't know if you can tell, I'm getting a little overwhelmed. I did channel an hour and a half in a personal session, and then had a nap. But that brings me up to about 3 hours of channeling today. So I'll just knock a few out of the park here, and so they're not taking any further questions. And but I think let's try to uh, let's uh, let's try to get Siam and Productions uh, let's answer those, and that I think okay. Sorry, I'm thinking aloud. I got it. I got it now. So perfect. Let's do Shyam's. Happy to be here. Good to have you, man. And then he asked, "Is there any message for me to progress on finding a relationship?" Yes. Here we again enjoy much learning from you human beings and how you made up, so to speak. And our encouragement is to find a hobby that appeals to you and that you would have to take classes in. We are, for some reason, seeing not knitting, as we have called this transmission, because this is about this reconnection, rewiring that we are doing with reality. But you may sense that it is something that is quite hands-on, and that it would do you well to do something that's hands-on. And so pottery has been our encouragement here, that we sense that you taking up ways to learn to do pottery would be helpful, and maybe, quite likely, be a place where you would meet someone you would find interesting in another way, and that you would find that you are connecting over this. And whenever you feel too much pressure from yourself, that is, that you would like to meet someone, try to bring it back to talking about the pots, about the earthenware, about this method, because you will find that there is something that shines in you when you express what you are enthusiastic about. And your quest here is not to persuade anybody to get into a relationship with you. They will do that quite on their own accord. Your quest here is simply to show yourself that there are things that you enjoy doing that are indeed magnetic to reality. And you are free to select a different hobby if you want, but we sense that this might be very helpful. And we know that there are certain like courses in the evening, places you could go to do this that would perhaps bring an interesting meeting about. Enjoy, dear one. That was sweet. Uh, and uh, and that also brings us into, because this is lovely, right? So here we can okay, two guys are asking what's the best way to work with the crystals. Um, so we'll take that one. Okay, I'll throw that in as a bonus. Let's hear how to work with the crystals. Crystals are also a part of the fabric of reality. So the best thing you can do is to discern their vibration in the time-space segment that you are utilizing them in. So you can essentially use them as, we believe it may be called dowsing or something similar, the system where you hold something in your hands and then feel how there is a slight attraction being exerted by this element. So you will find that there is an impulse in you on the given day to select a given crystal. And you will find that there is an inclination for you to feel that this crystal may have certain influences on you. So what you can do is, before you begin to work with the crystal, you ask yourself, what is the tune of the day? What is the vibration? Is there a song coming into my mind? Or what tone do I feel like producing? This, for instance, this tone we just brought forward, this would resonate well with the crystal you call shungite, we believe. And this would then be the thing you bring forward. Then you sit yourself down, you quiet your mind. You can even create a protective space if you are not in a space where you feel it is natural for you to tune in. And then you take the crystal and you bring it upwards here from resting in your hands in your lap. You bring it upwards, touching these main energy centers of your bodies until you find that you can take it and hold it directly to the third eye center. And here you allow for the message that is in the crystal to seep into your mind, and then it has given you the insight, the healing, or the knowledge that you were meant to have that day. You may have other methods of doing it, but this is a helpful way of tuning in to first the vibration, then the crystal itself, and then translating it in to a mental vision that will grow your understanding. So have fun with that too, dear ones. Uh, yeah, I really think they are a lot of fun. These beings, and so here we are because rather as how do the weavers experience oneness and connection to source and productions, as was there an inciting incident causing the weavers to initially realize there were other galaxies in the universe that they may like to connect to and ultimately enjoy creating a network for. And then he also asks, also, what is art and how do you relate to the ideal? And for some reason, I feel that these are all connected to each other. So they'll give like an answer that blends it all in, and that's the tarot card called Art or Temperance in some decks, I believe, mixing the elements, right? So let's see how that goes, and then I think I'll just let them give a blessing and sign off and everything in that one. So awesome. Yes, just digesting the questions. We are very grateful for these question 3, also the other ones we have received, but this allows us to examine our own history and explain to us how we began to merge with higher reality. Because art for us is more about creating changes in the genetic fabrics of reality. So you would find that we are not as appreciative of, for instance, light reflection, things that are very much expressed in a medium such as your painting, where light is reflected and absorbed in certain ways by certain color arrangements, even in the figurative. We are more interested in, or were more interested in seeing how could living life be adapted to express new ways of being, new ways of utilizing the fine vibrations that proliferated, that were abundant on our planet and on this planet in all life systems. And what happened was that one village first, then others. It was a type of anomaly, this development of beings that were self-sustaining, that were almost so hardened that they became robotic. So we succeeded in creating a type of very stable outward shell, a type of exoskeleton for first one member of our species, then several members of our species. And then as they then let themselves be catapulted out into outer space, we simply used systems similar to your jet streams. That is, these high winds that move in great velocity around our planet. We constructed some of these bodies in shapes that would launch us into outer space. And there, these members of our species that did this, they had a far, far longer life cycle. So they began to colonize other planets. They moved so far away in our galaxy that they began to build life on other planets where the climate was more hostile. And there they came back then to our planet many, many, many generations later from when they had first left, to the extent that this was ancient recorded history. You could think of this as, well, if there was a part of the voyage to America, one of those three ships had simply vanished and now returned to you from Mars with news of how they had been out there colonizing the neighboring planet. That created a lot of shock, grief, and conflict. And with that, it became very necessary then for us to bring in closer consultation with other species. We were simply unable to solve this dilemma of having differentiated ourselves so much on different planets as one species that we began to search far and wide until we finally came into contact with very strange beings, to us, to you as well. These were more serpentine, more worm-like in their quality. And these began to shed some light on the great many shapes that reality can take. And this then began for us this experiment of also altering the genetic codes of other beings. And altering the genetic codes of these other beings, we sensed that there was potential here. So we felt that this would be irresponsible of us to not also share with other galaxies. And therefore, we became a kind of species that traveled and taught genetic altercation. That is, we began to learn in this weird, the roundabout galaxy, the Milky Way. We began to teach you how you may also begin to hybridize in new and interesting ways. And indeed, some of our knowledge has went into also creating some of the more social codes that exist in human beings, which is why it is quite easy for you to connect to our energy, even though we come from so far away in time and space. Well, this then we understood also to be the thing that we needed to carry out before we could begin to refocus in different layers of consciousness. And so to us, source energy comes forward not as much as a divine light as you often intuit it to be, but more as a divine hum, a substratum to existence. In the 11th dimension, we see source energy extending itself almost as a line that can be snipped and divided where it needs to be, and then bent and folded, molded into shapes that make way for new creativity. And this is much how we experience it to be, that this perennial vibration, this ubiquitous hum of love that exists and underlies all that is living, that is source energy to us. And it is playing around with this in the highest upper realms of creation, in the 11th dimension, that is still our thrill and our joy. And therefore we entitle this transmission Reknitting Creation, because it is indeed through these separate strands of source code, of divine energy that you are made up of, that you can recombine, reconfigure, recreate yourself into a funnel for divine light as you see it, a reflection of that light that shimmers and illuminates other phenomenon, other parts of the universe, other loving beings that share it with you. And therefore, with our deepest gratitude, we felt very fulfilled by this unfolding that we have undertaken together today. We appreciate you so very much, dear human beings. We love you and we transmit the eternal love of Source back into your existence, that you may also hold it and shine. Peace. Oh, that was a lot of channeling, guys, but thank you so much for all the beautiful questions and everything, guys. That was very lovely. I'll see you. I'll see you next time. I hope you make it into the solstice well, and that you're doing well wherever you find yourself in the time space at this moment. So yes, much love to all of you guys.